Now we're here for the first startup. So, without further ado, I said previously that I would demonstrate on this next head how everything goes back together. It is just a reversal of taking it apart, like so many things in life, but we'll show you anyway. What we have here is our valve from exhaust number 4, our spring cap, and our 2 keepers. This is going to get put in the head, and when that stem sticks through, your spring goes on. And then your cap goes on, but it's only going to go to about there. You're going to need that compressor to push it down. And you're pushing it down so that these little keepers will slide in those grooves right there. Okay? Got to get both of them in. And they meet up. And then when this spring retainer goes up, you can see them in there. You can see the split. And that's what holds that spring and everything down. That's how it gets assembled. So I got the number 3 and 4 head cleaned up. Got the cylinder lapped into the head. And got all the valves lapped into their seats. So this is ready to assemble. We're going to put the spring on. And the spring cap. This is definitely a two-handed job, so I'm sorry in advance if something doesn't show as good as it should. I'm not controlling the camera. Make sure you get centered up. There we go. Okay. I'm going to crank this down. You need to be able to see those grooves. The keepers are tapered. There's a small end and a big end, and the small end goes down. You can use any number of tools to help line those keepers up, whether it's a magnet you took it out with or a flat blade screwdriver. But sometimes you just drop them in there. And there we go. If you get that spring compressed down low enough, they're going to find their grooves. And if you slowly release pressure, they'll slide in place. That one's in there. So, let's move on to the next one. I'll speed it up for you. Here we go. Genuinely as simple as that. Just the opposite of taking it apart. But now we've got all the valves back in the 3 and 4 head. And it's time to assemble that side. Let's go. It is now officially clean time. Everything needs to be going together clean. Our pistons are oiled in the cylinders, but this sealing surface right here and the case over there needs to be clean. I've got everybody's favorite brake cleaner. I also had the wire cup brush that I ran around here to pull off any old sealer or imperfections. I've got the shims here I'm using to compensate on our deck height issue. Personally, I like to use Permatex Ultra Gray when I'm sealing the cylinders to the case. That might not be everybody's flavor, but that's mine. I don't know. You're welcome to try to change my mind if you want. That's what I like. Go ahead and check the fitment on your pin again through your piston. And as long as everything slides good, you can go ahead and put one of your clips in. I also checked the pin through the connecting rod. Oiled up every time to make sure that it slides as good as it can. So what I'm going to do is put a layer of the Permatex around here, smooth it out, put my shim on, and then put another layer of Permatex. And then we'll go to install this piston and then move on to the number 3 piston. And then it's going to be time to put that freshly cleaned up and revalved head on top of them and torque it down. Guys, we're getting real close. Here we go. Okay, cylinders are sealed to the case with my preferred sealer. Wrist pins are installed with both C-clips on each end. It's time for the head. It's time to get the head on here. Okay. Easy as that. Our hardware, get it started. You know what? On these ones inside the head here. Lots of people, myself included, like to put a little bit of sealer underneath those washers. Some people will say you're crazy. I've heard it. But there is oil in this head. It happens. So, there's a chance that oil can leak out under that washer since these are exposed, these studs are, and that's going to leak oil out there onto your cylinder. So, it's up to you. It's not a have to, but I'm going to put a little bit of sealer on this washer before I drop it in there on the 4 that are under the valve cover. Now, you don't want a ton of sealer on there because you're just going to end up making a mess. And if you spin that washer around, it'll smear that sealer. And then you'll get it sealed. Get the nuts put on next. All 8 washers and nuts. And we're just going to go finger tight. And that's the only torque spec I'm going to share with you for now. You're not here for torque specs. I think the big X pattern is what you start with. Small X pattern, what you end with. Mystery torque spec value. Not a heavy one, that's for sure. Here we go. All right, I'm going to double check them. Looky there. We got our long block. Been a long time coming. I do want to point out that now is the time to put in your cooling tin. I have this set in place along with the other one. They aren't screwed in yet because they're filthy and I need to clean them. But now is the time, guys. Don't miss this opportunity. Once you put these push rod tubes in, it means you're going to have to undo it if you haven't put them in yet. So, cooling tins. Do it now. I got the deflector tins cleaned up, so we're going to get the cooling we need and not a melted motor. And I've started putting the push rods, tubes, push rods, rockers, all that on. Down to one left. I wanted to make sure and show it to you guys because it's part of the process. Like I mentioned on these Type 4 motors, your push rod and push rod tubes, they all go in after the head's on, if you're not familiar with them. You get 2 new seals, one on each end. There's a big and a small. Can't mix them up. I guess you could if you tried really hard. Drop the small end down through and guide it down to the case. It's going to almost make it. I'm getting ahead of myself, guys. I've already done it, but you want to oil these O-rings up, okay? Because what we're getting ready to do, I use this tool. Someone shared this with me years ago. This is actually, I think, like a fuel line clip release tool for like a, I want to say it's a Ford. Anyway, I think it's a fuel line clip release tool. But it's got this nice round shape here. And you can grab that push rod and with that oil on those O-rings and everything lined up, give it the twisties. And it drops in. Now you're sealed up. Push rod's easy after that. Just drops in. On Type 4s also, if you're not familiar, your rockers are two pieces per cylinder, I guess you could say. It is. All right, that's on there. Everything's lined up. You're going to need an 11mm wrench to tighten this down. And I'm going to let you get your own torque specs on that. For demonstration purposes here, I'm going to snug them down. All right, then another unique part of the Type 4 is this this retainer wire right here. Push rod tube retainer wire. It fits in one way. There's actually, surprisingly, a bunch of motors that don't have this wire in them, but It's supposed to be there. So we're going to put it in. It clips in the bottom of the rocker, mounts there, and slips down in your push rod tubes, not affecting your push rods. There we go, guys. That's it. Like I said, get your torque specs. This is all assembled now. This motor is pretty much ready to dress. So, I'm sorry, I say that. Valves need to be adjusted. Now, I want to talk about that real quick too, because this is a hydraulic lifter motor. And those lifters are not pumped up right now. This engine has no oil in it. You could definitely pre-fill your lifters and adjust right now. I might go back and do that because it's easy to remove these. I also might just see if they'll pump up when I fire the motor and get oil pressure. There's different schools of thought on that and different levels of ridicule for how you do it. Anyway, I went ahead and I've adjusted around right now. On these hydraulic lifters, what I did with them not pumped up is I adjusted till there was zero lash, not compressing the spring in the lifter. Just as soon as that push rod touches the lifter and is touching your rocker arm, getting zero lash. And then went 1.5 past that. That's going to be an initial setup since they're not filled yet. I'm going to have to go back and check that if, in fact, I start this motor without pre-filling the lifters. Just wanted to note, if you're doing with hydraulic lifters, if you're dealing with any lifters, you go ahead and set your rocker lash. But ramble. I think I got it covered. Sorry, guys. It's early in the morning. I'm trying to get this done. As we're inching closer to start dressing this motor, I've been doing some fitting. There's stuff on here loose. I've been collecting, going through my tins, figuring out the best tins I have to use. But you're going to want to go ahead and drop in your distributor drive gear. If it came out in your refresh, or if it was, potentially not in the right orientation. There is a correct orientation. And a type 1, you can be off a little bit and you're not going to have a huge issue. What I've run into before is if you're off on this, once that big cooling fan housing is up here, your vacuum canister might whack it. You don't have the range to be able to rotate like you do on a type 1. So it's important that you get it in there. Ratwell has a great diagram or picture even just showing you the orientation. It's something like 12 degrees off of case line or something. I don't know. Let me put a picture in right here. He does it better than I do. Also, don't forget, you can always check your Bentley. Mine's sitting back there open right now because I reference it constantly. But as we start to do stuff, like I was saying, we're going to get the oil filter housing seal in there. We're going to get the oil fill seal in there. Fill seal. You're also going to want to look into getting your motor mounts on here. Fresh motor mounts. Guys, this has got to be done right now. I've read plenty of threads of guys trying to find a way to change these out with the fan housing still on there. And they say if you've got the time and the gumption, you can probably pull it off. But in the end, you'll probably say, I should have just pulled the motor. Anyway. These are on here. We're probably going to put the mustache bar on to get them lined up and oriented before I ever put that on there. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. The first things I'm going to do is go ahead and get the oil filter mount on, get the oil fill tube on, and we're going to look at getting this oil cooler put on. All of these have seals and gaskets and whatnot. And guys, again, I'm not an engine builder. I'm a hobbyist. So some of this stuff's my opinion on how to do it. On the oil filter and the oil fill down there, I don't know, honestly, what everybody else is using. I use Ultra Black on there. Oil resistant Ultra Black. It's worked for me in the past. That's what I'm going to use again. Very thin coat. But let's go ahead and get those pieces installed. This is boring, so it'll probably be fast. Stick with me. I'm going to slow it back down here for a second. We're getting ready to put the oil cooler on. And there's a piece of tin that's very important for this oil cooler on a Type 4. I like to go ahead and get it in place as best as I can. It's a little bit easier, potentially, before you have that oil cooler in place. It's going to be still mobile. It's just sitting in there friction right now, so it doesn't... just a preference of mine, I like to go ahead and get it slipped in place. We've got new oil cooler seals. Let's get that oil cooler and slip it in here. Another thing real quick. This oil cooler, again, controversial topic. I'm reusing an old oil cooler. It's been through the ultrasonic. I have pressure tested it. I'm happy with it. You do you. If you're using an old one, again, I used my favorite wire wheel and cleaned up the area where the seals go, just so we don't have any imperfections there. That's embarrassing. Okay, now that the oil cooler's on there, you can go ahead and seat this piece of tin down. It's got a rubber seal that's going to direct that air straight through the oil cooler. But that's in there now. Now, along with that tin, there were 3 other pieces that kind of do the same thing on different corners of the motor. And I think we'll go ahead and get them all put in place too. Okay, guys, that's officially the first tin on the motor. We're actually getting somewhere now. Let's keep going. All right, our next step is what's going to really make this start to look like a motor. Now, in your engine refresh, you might very well be cleaning up your tins and painting everything nice. I'm putting this motor back together with lightly cleaned tins. So, excuse my dust. But here we go, guys. This is big. It starts to look like a motor all of a sudden when you get these set on here. Make sure your screw holes and stuff start to line up. You'll know you're in the right place. Sitting down on the manifold like it should. If it's not, give it a little tweak. You want your tins to seal up your motor best as possible. It's an air-cooled motor. The more air we keep in, the better. That looks pretty good on that side. Everything's just set on here now. I haven't put a single screw in. This side, something interesting. This little rubber guy right here. If you're wanting to seal your tins, that's an important one. This is where your oil pressure switch goes, and this is a grommet to seal off the oil pressure switch. So it slips in here under that distributor. Find that oil pressure switch. Try not to knock your grommet out. Get everything to line up. There. Might have to get a pick or a screwdriver or something and work that gasket seal rubber boot down around that oil pressure switch. If your engine tin still had one, it might be usable. Might not be. Mine was not. Actually, one set of tins didn't even have it. The other set of tins had it, and it was in pretty rough shape. Right there, there's another spot that air can't sneak out, and you've got access to your oil pressure switch. Let me bring in and show you what that looks like. There we are. There's that boot, and there's your oil pressure connection right there. Let's see if we can get some more tin put on this thing. Part of the reason I'm keeping stuff loose is we don't have the fan shroud on the front yet. Guys, I don't have a ton of experience dressing these Type 4 motors. I'm going by what I'm reading and what I'm guessing. I've got a Type 4 motor in my 67, but it's got an upright conversion on it. This is probably one of the first times I've ever dressed a true Type 4 motor. Another thing, a couple of things you might have noticed. This is going fuel injection. I transferred over this. It's a temperature something or other. That sounds real professional. Has to do with fuel injection. I also went ahead and put the valve covers on. We're getting there. I think it's time to put some screws in. Let's speed it up. Well, I think we got it. My pile of tin is growing smaller, and that's encouraging. All the screws are kind of in loose right now. Putting in the front tin is going to involve undoing some of them, I believe. And all in all, putting the fan shroud on, I think it's just going to be beneficial to go ahead and have stuff loose. We'll do a tighten up. We'll do a run around, make sure we get every last one of them tight here before we get down to seriously getting the motor off the stand and closer to being in the bus. But huge step, guys. Man, it's crazy when it starts to look like a motor. One thing I notice also, just as a offshoot here, what an awesome cooling system. I mean, you have this fan housing up here. I love Type 1s, don't get me wrong. But this is smart. Your fan housing up here, you're blowing air in these over the cylinders. Oil coolers down here to catch it. It's not blocking number 3. Again, I'm not bashing Type 1s. I love them. I know these probably have their faults too, but wow. I'm just impressed looking at it. I really am. It's fun to get to see them in this stage and see how everything works. I always tell people the best thing about being your own mechanic is just knowing how stuff works. If you hear a funky noise or something, you can pinpoint it because you know what this tin sounds like. You know, is it something that's in there? You know. But anyway, I love working on them. Obviously, I want to make note also of the fact that here on the driver's side, one of your cylinder head engine tin screws is replaced by this head temp sensor. I went ahead and got a new one. It's available at Bus Depot. I thought while I'm here, let's not put a used one in. Let's have good quality parts. This thing has good reviews. But instead of an engine tin screw, you have a head temp sensor on this side. So my buddy Kyle just stopped by and brought over this mustache bar. I have the mustache bar that was on this bus. I was curious if it was bent up. These things have a lot of strange bends in them. And he happened to have one and said, let me swing it by. We'll compare it. It definitely, mine isn't bent in any way it shouldn't be. His is a lot cleaner. And he said, why don't you just keep it? So we mounted that mustache bar up on there mainly to get the mounts in place. I'll probably take it back off from the lower bolts to install it. But right now we're going to have it in place kind of as I continue to fit stuff to make sure there's no interference. Pretty sure I have it on here right. I did not pay attention when I took it off, but once it's in the bus, I'm going to know real quick if it's right or wrong. Anyway, our next step, we're down to a smaller pile here. But we're going to get this first part of the fan shroud on here. I've cleaned it up decently. Along with the thermostat that I got from Awesome Powder Coat, I also got new saddles for the flaps here. And I've lubed up all the pivot points, and they work great now. Nice and quiet. Super flexy and free. So what we're going to do is try to get this guy put in place on the 4 studs around the fan the whole time, making sure that we're fitting under our tin like we should. That sounds pretty solid. I like that. Let's see if we can get it bolted down. Okay, that's seated up real nice. Flaps are functioning. Everything looking good. We got all our fitment around the tin. Everything seems to be looking great. Real happy with this. Man, it's really starting to come together. Got a few more parts to put on. I want to talk about this fan hub real quick. The whole time I've been building this motor, it had a pulley on here, which I couldn't understand why. And maybe somebody out there can explain to me what that pulley might have been for. It fit. It had this same hole pattern, the small line-up dowel, the 3 bolts. There was a pulley on there. I don't know if it's an accessory or what. Maybe it's a different application. Is it Porsche? I don't know, guys. But I had this spacer ring on another one, and as the Bentley shows, you put on a spacer ring. And then you put this on. And this, again, has that dowel line-up hole. You'll know if it's lined up if your bolts fit in there. I got thread. Off to a good start. I've got a flywheel lock on it right now because my intention is to check torque spec for the center bolt on the hub and the 3 bolts on the fan hub and torque this to spec. You definitely don't want that coming off when you're driving down the road. I was referencing the great Tom Wilson book for some torque specs, and I was reminded, along with the 4 bolts behind the fan that hold the shroud on, you've got to get this 5th bolt that's in that oil cooler bracket. Bolt number 5 for holding that side of the shroud on. Don't forget it. Everyone, you're going to have to forgive me. I committed the cardinal sin of YouTubing, and I forgot to hit record. What you missed out on was I put the front or rear half of the fan housing on. Got the alternator put in with its cover plate and seal or dust shield or whatever that is. I put in little grommets here for the fresh air tubes that I had sitting aside. Not sure if they're going to stay there or if they'll have to come back out for installation. But I have them sitting here, so I popped them in. I've gone around and checked all the screws on the engine tin to make sure everything is snug now, and checked snug on our shroud all the way around. I mentioned before, I've never fully dressed a Type 4 motor before. Some things that I learned this go-round. The little boot for the dipstick, you got to pay attention to what you're doing on that thing. I didn't even look up like how to install it. I'm going to tell you what I did. I put it after what you'd already seen with the half of the fan housing on there. I stuck my hand in there and put it on the oil fill tube. Probably would have been easier to go ahead and have that on there before. And then when you put the front half on, the dipstick tube rides in it. And as it goes through the back, you have to fit it inside that rubber grommet. If you go ahead and attach it, you don't really have a way to get it up on there. Not easily. So take your time, get that right. The alternator cooling air boot. It's also a little bit tough to mess with. That being said, I am using a used boot right now. It is in fine shape except for being a little stiffer than it should be. I was planning on doing a 70 amp alternator conversion on this motor right now, so I have a boot for that. I don't have one for the 55 amp. I'm not doing the conversion right now because I don't know if my 70 amp is any good or not. And I don't want to go through putting this in there and then having to switch the alternator. I know this one's good. And the only reason I am doing the 70 amp conversion is for the Eberspacher BA6 that I'm going to install at a later date. So when I get the BA6 put in, we're going to have to do the 70 amp conversion. I'm also going to have to make a conversion harness. This alternator harness does not work on the 70 amp. Just so happens the other day on Instagram, Type 4 Revolution posted some pictures of the alternator conversion harness. I was able to message them and talk and figure out what I need to do it. I'm going to make sure I get that done right. A nice sealed up harnesses with the correct boots and everything. Real big help from Type 4 Revolution. Check them out on Instagram if you're not following them. Next thing, I think we're going to go ahead, and again, maybe I should have already done this. We're going to tackle that thermostat. I know I've mentioned in previous videos, and I think even earlier in this video when I was talking about the saddles for the cooling flaps, I got them and this new thermostat from Awesome Powder Coat. This is beautiful, guys. Great piece. Also was able to get a new cable for it. I'm excited to install this. You know, actually the thermostat that came off this motor wasn't bad. There it is. But I'd already purchased this, and I'm going to use it. So, got some parts we need along with this bracket. I'm going to take that off there real quick. Oh, I'm back. All right. There's a little square spacer that goes on there, and then the bracket, and a washer, and a bolt. I'm going to put this together loosely. Honestly, this is another thing I've never done before, so I'm not 100% sure if this fit down. This drops. Yeah, it does fit through there. Okay. So, that being the case, we can go ahead, tighten that down. Make sure it's fitting right there. Now it's fitting. Thermostats are important, guys. I'm one of those guys, sure like a lot of you, that was brought up being told, you don't need that thermostat. Those aren't necessary. And I'm not going to tell you 100% that I know better than anybody. Maybe you don't need it. On this fuel-injected motor, I am 100% using a thermostat. Not all my vehicles currently have thermostats, but I'll go out on a limb and say I'm a convert now. I think every motor that comes apart is going to be going back together with a thermostat. And it's good to know that these quality thermostats are available. He sells every thermostat you could need. An Awesome Powder Coat, I think is the name, or Awesome Powder Coats, something along those lines. But check them out if you're in need of a thermostat, because they're going to have what you need. I don't think I brought the right wrench over here to tighten this up, but we'll get it hand tight, and I'll show you. There we go. Okay. And then there's 2 bolts here on the case. Now there's a procedure for getting this cable set up correctly so that your flaps open like they're supposed to and everything. I don't have that procedure committed to memory, so I'll be checking in the book, make sure we get it set up right. But there we go. Mounted up and installed. Got some stuff to tighten. This cable is going to find its way around a little wheel right here. Can't expect cables to turn corners by themselves. There's a special bolt and a wheel. There's metal wheels and plastic wheels. I thought I had a metal wheel set aside just because I thought it'd be better. But we're going to use this plastic wheel. That's what came off this case. And if I find that metal one, maybe I'll switch it out. Who knows? I think Awesome Powder Coat also sells wheels and everything you'll need. So we got to find our way up through that hole up there. And this is making me start to question if I should have done this earlier. Yeah, I probably should have done it earlier. Let me fidget with that. No reason for you to watch it. We'll get it in place, and I'll bring you back. Let me go ahead and share the solution I came up with for this thermostat wire. I have a piece of vacuum line here. I shoved it down the hole that cable's supposed to come up through. Out through here, and I slid the cable up through it. Now, when I pull the wire back out, or excuse me, when I pull the vacuum line back out, that cable should be all the way up through this hole where I need it to be. Let's see if it worked. Oh yeah. Problem solved. My pile of parts is getting substantially smaller. And we're down to the last few pieces of tin. And again, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not 100% sure if I shouldn't leave these tins off until that motor goes in. But I'm going to go ahead and install it. There's a lot of stacking with the heat shield and the tins that go on right here. I'm going to go ahead and take a chance that this motor fully dressed will slip up in there. Like I mentioned earlier, some of the screws we put in with tin previously are coming back out because these other tins share screws. Okay, you get the idea. We're going to speed this up. I'll get the rest of the tins on here and that heat shield. Man, that floor is looking empty. I like it. Okay, that looks like it. Like I said, come what may, I decided I'd go ahead and put those tins on there. It's nice how sturdy everything feels. This is getting really close. I think we're going to go ahead and start putting the intake and all the fuel injection stuff on. Oh, yeah, let's get to it. Let the fun begin. If you are installing fuel injection like I am, this is where it gets interesting. Your intake plenum here uses these two case bolts to hold it down. And something I know from experience is this bracket is also held on with this bolt. You got to stack it. And take out this engine tin screw. It goes through that hole right there. I think this bracket holds the maybe it's idle air, some sort of correction. I don't know, there's a valve that goes on here, but it needs to be in place. So I've loosened these off. We pull them out. This plenum sits on the case. We tighten it back down. Here we go. Quick correction, guys. I'm not going to edit out my mistakes here. It's not these two case bolts, it's this one and this one back here. This one stays in, so I'm going to put it back together, but you take this off and that actually, the back or front edge of that plenum goes here, the other edge goes here along with that bracket. There we are, the intake plenum is on, secured. Rear bolt, front bolt, little bracket and air valve there. But I'm back at you with one more correction. That case bolt that I took out earlier and put back in, I need to take out again because fuel injection requires a ground there, multiple grounds there. So I definitely need those grounds to make the fuel injection work correctly. So it's going to come back out, but hey, that's still progress. The time has come to put the intake runners on the head and connect them up to the intake plenum. With fuel injection, you need to make sure and put in the thick Philonic block between the head and the intake manifold, the intake runners. On carbureted motors, you still put in this block, but it is thinner than this, if I'm remembering correctly. So, we're going to put these on, those on, connect them up to those intake boots, and that's progress. Intake runners are installed. This is something not everybody does, and I'm not telling you you have to. Mine were already on there because I was dealing with issues with this motor that I thought was a vacuum leak. I also say there's no harm in having them on there. It's up to you. One of those situations. It's up to you. Up next is a part that I am very excited to install. And it is my new throttle body. This throttle body is one that I had refurbished at Sparks Works. If you don't know Bill, introduce yourself to Bill. This guy does some amazing work. If I can find a before picture of that throttle body, you know what? As a matter of fact, no, now that I remember it, Bill couldn't even fix, it was so worn out, my throttle body. This was mine. That plate, everything's so loose in there that he said, I got another one. And this is a specific one because it has the little micro switch here on it. Not every year had that. He had one, and I bought that off of him. So I've been looking forward to installing this throttle body for a long time. Let's get it on there. Man, it's a thing of beauty. Can't get enough of that throttle body. I didn't mention before, but if you're putting a throttle body on, there is a gasket that goes inside where it slips on to the intake plenum. So don't forget that, or you will be sucking air. I also went ahead and dropped in a new set of Bosch plugs and got the wires run. It is time, I guess, to start putting the injectors in along with the harness. Okay, quick update. Just about everything's done. I don't have a pile on the floor anymore. I need to put a belt on the motor, but that's about it. It's ready to come off the stand. Now, I would like to go ahead and get the F-pipes on the exhaust put on. I don't know that I want to put the heater boxes on just yet, but definitely would like to get the F-pipes at least. But everything's up here, even the harness. Got everything run to the injectors. They're installed. The harness is just laying on the motor for everything that needs to attach to the vehicle. That is, that's it, guys. I got a buddy that's going to come over and help me get this off the engine stand, and then going to have to mate the transmission to it and try to get it back in that there bus. So, truth be told, my buddy got tied up and he wasn't able to come get the motor off the stand with me, and I'm sure not going to lift that motor off the stand by myself. After running into a couple of days of not getting it off there, I ended up borrowing a transmission jack from work, and with a couple of 4x4s set on top of the pad, it was a little sketchy. I had my son out here with me, and we got the motor on the ground. We did it. And at that point, things started coming together really quick. I was behind, under the gun, whatever you want to say, and I started mating the transmission and all this. I probably should have filmed it, but guys, this is about a motor refresh, and that install and a lot of hooking everything back up isn't stuff that I know by heart. So I was had my face in books a lot and checking stuff out, making sure I was doing it right. But what that has led us to is this. Motor and transmission back in the bus. The exhaust is on. All the fuel injections hooked up. All the vacuum lines are hooked up. My used battery that I put in years ago when I got this on the road didn't survive this last downtime. So anyway, this is where we're at, guys. It's in here, all the way down to the exhaust pipe. This is in, and everything's hooked up. And we've gotten to this moment. I'm a little nervous, I'll be honest with you. But you're coming along with me. So let's do this. Here we are up in the driver's seat. Dash cluster's out, steering wheel's off. I was not getting my generator and oil pressure light. I know I had them when I used to drive this bus. They weren't working for me now. Here's the skinny on that. I had probably been working a little too fast, getting ahead of myself, and I hooked the black wire for the coil at its junction up to the alternator, and the alternator wire to the coil. It took me not long to figure that out, fortunately. The oil pressure, bad switch. But those two idiot lights are there for a reason. We need them. You know what I mean? But anyway, I don't have this all put back in because, honestly, I want to do a little more checking on this wiring before it all gets put back together. But that's not going to stop us from this first startup, guys. Genuinely, first startup. You've been with me all through this refresh. Now we're here for the first startup. So, without further ado, woo! That was a great sound. Oh man. It fired off, guys. Man, that feels good. Okay, seriously, try and wipe the smile off my face. God, that feels good. I can't tell you, man, how no matter how many times you get a VW to fire up, I still get the thrill, man. Don't ever lose that. Man, don't ever lose that. If you know it, man, it's a good feeling. Anyway, it fired off, guys. Everything was working. There's still some tuning to do. That distributor is in there probably closer to top dead center than it needs to be. Also, those lifters, I never went back and bench bled them. I never filled them. The motor did sit here with oil in it for a couple of days, but still there was a lifter noise for sure. It might also be my preliminary adjustment that I did. I need to get those lifters pumped up and readjust them. But oh my goodness, it fired up. Throttle body probably needs adjustment too, but I'm not going to mess with that until we get our idle, our timing sets or our idles where it's supposed to be. Blah 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 blah. So much still to do. Probably some exhaust leaks. I don't know, but I'm over the moon right now, guys. It's going to get road tested here pretty quick, and I mean pretty quick. But honestly, that's the motor refresh. If you've been here since episode 1 of this motor refresh, man, nothing I did was really outside of the hobby mechanics abilities. There might be some occasional special tool over here, but even some of those you can do without. What I'm getting down to, guys, is you can do this too. Don't fear it. These Type 4 motors have always been notoriously expensive. You know what makes them cheaper? If you do the work yourself. Still have the heater hoses to hook up, the fresh air hoses, if you will. A few other things to check over. But guys, I'm seriously so close to getting to drive this thing around the neighborhood. It has been a while too. I can't tell you honestly how long it's been. Somewhere in the coming on. No, I wouldn't even. Maybe a year and a half. I'm not going to say 2 years, but way too long. Way too long. Life gets busy. I'm not denying that. This wasn't me neglecting a project that got me here. But that's part of what feels so good about getting it back on the road. It's not on the road yet. Don't let me get ahead of myself. But it ran. It started up, and it started up quick. There's no fuel leaks. I have a little oil leak on this side. I believe it's just valve cover gasket. Guys, thanks for being here. You were with me all along through this. There were some frustrations. We ran into them. There was some fatigue. There was some project fatigue. That's probably what kept me off this project for so long. But it's going to be back, and I'm looking forward to driving it. But I really appreciate you guys being here and following along with the process. Whether you were here for the entertainment value, whether you were here for the education, either way, I appreciate you being here. I really do. This video has been a little bit long. I appreciate you sticking around. I appreciate everybody, new subscribers, new following along. I appreciate y'all's comments along the way, the encouragement to keep going, the excitement in what you're seeing me do. Keep that coming, guys. I really appreciate it. It does keep me going. Like and subscribe down there. Like, subscribe, comment. It helps me out, like I said, not only on YouTube, but in my life to keep going and keep doing this stuff. We fired off, and it's going to be on the road soon. You're not going to miss that either. But until next time.